Okay, good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. We have over 50 people here already, and people will still be trickling in. But thanks to all of you for joining us today. I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be a great day. I want to start by thanking our sponsor, GRICON Therapeutics. They'll be speaking later today about the first commercial clinical trial involving GRI patients, and that's their Radipridil, their compound that they're testing for potentially helping gain of function GRIN patients. So thank you again, GRICON Therapeutics, for sponsoring today. I say it's going to be a great day. We're going to hear, as I mentioned, clinical trial updates, not just from GRICON Therapeutics, but also about an L-Serene trial that has gone on in Europe. We're going to hear some groundbreaking GRI research, including research that you all have helped GRIN fund through your donations and fundraising. We're going to have the ever popular Ask Me Anything question. So save up your questions for later in the day, and we have a panel of experts that can answer. And then we're finishing off today with our second annual GRI Patient Impact Awards, where we're recognizing members of the community, patients, family members, researchers, funders, everyone people who have made a real difference in our efforts to get to a treatments and cures for GRI disorder. In terms of logistics today, you can make comments or ask questions in the chat. Video replays for all the sessions are going to be available I think within a day or two after today ends. So if you're not able to be here all of the time, or obviously there's some sessions that overlap, you can come back and see those after. There is also the lounge that was open this morning where you can go and chat with other families. And be sure to check out the posters and the sponsor booth that you can find all in the main menu of the conference room. So what I'm here to talk to you about as we start today is one of CureGRIN's strategic goals. And this is about our number one goal, which is to drive the research agenda to find treatments and cures by the end of the decade. Now that is a bold goal, but one that we really believe in and we're working towards. And so today I want to talk to you about how we're going to do that. Now, when we started CureGRIN almost exactly 5 years ago, we originally thought that the way that you get to treatments and cures was just raise as much money as you can and give it to researchers, and they will come up with treatments and cures and everything is solved. And that's not entirely wrong, but it's also far from the truth. There are a number of different pillars that we need to follow in our strategy to get to treatments and cures. So this slide kind of outlines the 5 pillars that we at CureGRIN are working towards, and I'm going to talk about each one separately. So the first one is to help scientists to prioritize and fund patient-centered research. Now, the GRI community has been so amazing and generated revenue that has allowed us already to award $650,000 in research grants. But there's work that we've done behind the scenes that has been even more impactful. So we have been able to put a team together of researchers and industry that was able to secure a $1.2 million grant for gene therapy research. We've also developed the research roadmap a few years ago that is designed to inform not just where we at CureGRIN invest our funds, but to kind of tell researchers what's important to us and tell other patient advocacy organizations what we think is important as we move forward in this goal. So the first one is definitely around funding research. We're also funding research ourselves for the first time this year. Doing research ourselves for the first time this year. So later today, Megan is going to talk about our GRI Angel studies, where we're looking at mortality and trying to learn why GRI patients are dying. The second pillar is around partnering with industry to develop treatments and cures for GRIA disorder. So obviously we have a close relationship with GRIN Therapeutics and speak with them regularly. But we also have active talks with more than 15 biotechs and pharmacological companies that are interested in potentially pursuing treatments and cures for GRIA disorder. We're talking to dozens of companies, but there are 15, that are seriously either already doing a clinical trial like GRIN Therapeutics, or doing preclinical work, or really just thinking about getting involved in research and development, specifically for GRIA disorders. So I can't talk about all of these, but here's a list of some of the ones who have been public in terms of what they're doing. So obviously we've got GRIN Therapeutics. The second one is NLORM, which is a nonprofit organization in the US. This was founded by the scientists who started Ionis, which is a company focused on a specific kind of genetic therapy where they target the RNA. And so now there's this foundation that has funding, and they are focusing on patients with or genes with very small patient populations. And so while many of our genes are not extremely rare in the context of rare disorders, most of the variants that patients have, maybe I guess all of the variants that our patients have, are rare. And when you're talking about gene therapy, often that could mean a different treatment for each different gene. So all of our patient genes would be in scope for what NLORM is doing. They've shown on their website that they've had applications from patients with GRIA1, GRIN2B, and GRIN2D. And we know that the GRIA1 family patient has been advanced to the next stage. And when funding arises, this could be the first genetic treatment on a patient with a GRIA disorder. Respirex is a company that has a number of ampakines that they are interested in potentially using as a treatment for patients with GRIA disorder. And so these would help people with loss of function GRIA disorder. Sage and Neumora, the next couple here, also have compounds. They have compounds that target the NMDA receptor. So the first one, they've said that it has to do with hypofunction. So this is people with loss of function. Neumora hasn't said. And I would say that for both of these, my sense is that they're at a place where they have these compounds, and they are kind of going through the process now of determining, does it make sense to use these on our patient population, or are there other targets that are better for them? So other things that are related to the NMDA receptor, so potentially depression, pain, some of the things that are treated through drugs targeting the NMDA receptor. And then the last one, Nos Pharma. This is a small company started by people at Dr. Derek Bowie at McGill. And he is working actually Cure GRIN through all of you and your donations. He's working on a treatment potentially for loss of function GRIN patients. So this is just a handful of the companies that have kind of disclosed their interest in our receptors, and there are many more that we are talking about that are, we're working to get them interested in taking things to the next level, or at least, helping them get started with research and development. The third big area is around clinical trial readiness. So it's one thing, when I talked at the start, you give the money to scientists, they find the cures, and then we're all good. But there's a big step in between finding the cures and showing that they work in science to actually proving that they work on human patients. And that involves clinical trials. And there have been many potential drugs, potential treatments that seem to work when you're testing them on animal models, and then they get to clinical trial, and for whatever reason, they fail. So one of our big priorities is that if there are compounds or genetic treatments that really should work on our patients, then we want to make sure that they're not going to fail because our community is not ready for clinical trials. So that means a GRI census that we are launching in the coming weeks. It'll be the first global census of GRI patients. So we're trying to understand where people live, what are the genes and variants that make up our patient population, and what are the most important things for all of you when you think about treatments or cures? What does that actually mean? What are the most important things for your kids that should be improved? And that actually connects to the third thing on the list, which is development and validation of outcome markers. So outcome measures. So an outcome measure is something in a clinical trial that's used to say if the treatment is working or not. And so without good outcome measures, we may not be able to prove that a drug is helpful with vision or is helpful with GI issues. So outcome measures are extremely important. And then finally, we invest in the collection, development, and sharing of biosamples and animal models. The fourth broad category is around advocacy. And so one example is our fight for ICD-10 and ICD-11 codes. We're doing a listening session with the US FDA this year. And we also have asked Simon Searchlight to add, they already had GRIN genes in their in Searchlight. And after we asked, they determined that they will add GRIA1, GRIA2, GRIA3, and GRIC2, and they're continuing to consider other GRI pathogenic gene or GRI genes that have pathogenic variants, including GRIA4. And then the fifth broad area is all of the work that we do around education and communication. And I'll just touch on one of these today, which is something that is in development and about to launch soon. But we have developed a physician education pamphlet so that if you go to a physician that doesn't know anything about your child's disorder, you can bring a copy of the pamphlet with them for your physician, and we'll also be sending these directly to physicians. So the takeaway from all this is that grants to fund researchers is just one piece of the broader puzzle, but on the other hand, it's a very important part of that puzzle. So saying that, I'm excited today to get to announce 3 new grants that will be funded thanks to all of our community and the work that you've done through donations and fundraising. So the first goes to Dr. Andrew Penn at the University of Sussex. This is one actually we announced a couple of weeks ago at Meet and Greet in the UK. And so his work is on developmental changes and mechanisms. Actually, I'm not going to read all that. I'm just going to explain essentially what he's doing, which is he's got a published work that suggests that the GRIN2A, the protein that's made by GRIN2A, may have a protective effect on the protein that's made by GRIN2B, and this may actually impact how the receptor functions. So you could have one variant of GRIN2B that at one point in life, when the GRIN2A proteins are more active, could behave one way, and then the receptor could behave a different way when the 2A proteins are less successful. So he's doing research where he's continuing investigating that and seeing, potentially could that signal different paths to treatment for GRIN2B variants. But there's also potential considerations for other GRIN genes as well. I know that at GRICON last year in Boston, there was a research that was presented around one GRIN variant, and I know this because it was my son's variant, but one GRIN one variant where the there was also appeared to be a neuroprotective effect from GRIN2A on the GRIN1 proteins. I saw that somebody had their hand up, so I think the best way, if you have any questions, is to put them in the chat. So I don't see anything there yet. Okay, so I'm going to move on. The second grant is around characterization. Again, why am I reading this? I'll tell you this in plain English, but this is around the symptom of gastrointestinal issues, which we know is from research that we've done in the past and from other published research. This is a big issue across our community, whether it's constipation or patients needing GI tubes or other digestive related issues. And so this proposal that we are planning to fund from Dr. Dahlman at the University of Miami is looking at what happens, why this is happening through tests both on patients and on zebrafish models of GRI disorders. So the patient tests involve both like tracking through an app, but also a blue muffin test, basically, where people in our community who participate in the trial will be giving blue muffins to their kids and then tracking when the color of their poops starts to change blue and then when it stops to change blue. And this will help determine overall how long it takes for things to pass through our kids compared to other kids, but there'll also be comparisons within families and siblings. And then the other half of the study involves these zebrafish model. And zebrafish are really interesting for research because they're translucent. So you can actually see the stuff moving through their digestive system. And it's hoped that through the zebrafish model, we'll actually understand why GI is an issue. Is it something that is, for example, originating in the brain? So when our kids have hypotonia, that originates in the brain and affects the muscles. But it could be that there's symptoms that are actually arising because of receptors, not in the brain, but because of receptors in the GI tract or that system. And so this is something that we're hoping we can help answer through the animal models. And then the final grant to announce today is on, well, it's about AMPA receptors. And we've given grants to this team at University College London in the past to focus on loss of function, treatments for loss of function chorea disorders, which are called AMPA-KINs. There has been one potential treatment that is sometimes used for gain of function chorea patients, and that is called Fycompa is the US name. Perampanel is the compound name. And I think it has different names in different countries, but it doesn't work for everyone. And it only does so much. So one of the things now that through the additional funding that's going to University College London is they're going to examine other alternatives to this compound. And I should note that all of these grants are our intent to move forward with them. We still have to do the negotiations and discussions with each university to get to the final point. But funds are set aside for all of these grants, and hope to get the money out and get the work started as soon as possible. Okay, so when you take the grants that we had funded previously and then add these ones to it, this is the total. So this is how much money that CureGrin has announced in terms of funding that we plan to give out, have given out or plan to give out, $898,000. And so for many of you may not know, but it's almost our 5-year anniversary. So CureGrin's financial year starts on May 1. And so we're closing in, we're just right at the end of our fiscal year now. And so year 6, it looks like will be the first year, or will be the year that we hit $1 million of funds given away. So really excited about that. I want to also talk about some changes to our team. So Denise, who was the one who set up GRICON 5 years ago and brought together a group of people, including me and Lauren Williams and others, to be board members. Denise has been working half-time for GRICON. She's moving out of the operations. She's going to continue to be a board member and will have the title of founder and president emeritus. And, you know, Denise, I hope you're listening, but what you've done over 5 years has just been incredible. We've already achieved so much, and I'm so grateful for you for starting this out, for inviting me to be on the board, and then you know, recommending me to take a bigger position in GRICON. Your work has really changed so many lives, and I'm so glad that you'll continue to be part of GRICON as a board member moving forward. What this also means is that as part of the changes, Lauren is being promoted and moving to full-time. So Lauren had also been a part-time employee of GRICON, and her new title is Director of Family and Donor Experience. I think most of you, maybe all of you, know Lauren. She has so much energy and is just so incredible. And I'm so excited that well, for the first time, GRICON will have two full-time employees on our team, and just can't believe how much more we're even going to be able to do, going forward. So this is the team. The other thing that I've done is I'll be stepping down from the board of directors. I've been a board member up until now, but in line with kind of best governance practices, I'll be stepping down from that. And I've also asked the board to change my title from Chief Executive Officer to Executive Director. And this is because this is often a more common title that's used with small and medium-sized foundations for the person that that leads the organization. And I feel like changes to executive director away from CEO, I'm hoping that it will give GRICON less of a corporate feel and kind of a more approachable feel. So there's Lauren and I that will be full-time. Megan and Brittany, who are also on the team, will continue to work part-time for GRICON. So Megan is our research manager. You're going to see and hear a lot from Megan today. And Brittany Brown is our part-time project coordinator. So to finish, I want to talk about GRICON 2025, so next year. So last year we were in Boston. Today, our postcard from the virtual conference looks a little bit different. And next year, well, this is just a clue. So we'll be announcing the date and the location at the end of the day. So some of you may have ideas based on this. Feel free to share in the chat if you think you know. But really excited to be back in person again next year. At last year's conference, we decided that we wanted to go back and forth, so a virtual conference after last year's in person, and then back to in person next year. So hope to see you all next year at wherever this middle photo is. Okay, so we have a couple minutes before the next session begins. Happy to take any questions in the chat.
Keith and Narita thinks it's going to be Mexico.
Okay. Do you see that in the chat? I'm not seeing. Oh, there I see it now. I see it now. Okay. Uh, so somebody asked, who's the researcher in Florida? So I'll go back. Uh, it's Dr. Julia Dahlman at the University of Miami. And so she's focused on rare DEEs, developmental and epileptic encephalopathies, and has done work particularly around how that is related to the GI tract. Australia, Jamaica, and Mexico. Oops. I'll put it up again in case anyone sees anything somewhere warm, who cares?